Alright, our next topic is the trap piece. Many times in a game, a piece will become trapped with nowhere to go, and when we attack that piece, we can win it. A lot of times that happens with pieces that are closer to the edge of the board, but if we look at our first example here, let's identify the trap piece here. There are no pieces on the edge of the board that are really trapped. So if you want more time, you can pause the video, but the correct answer here is that this knight on e4 is trapped. We notice it can't go to here because the pawn will take it. It can't go to f6 because the knight will take it. Can't go to g3 because the pawn will take it. d2 and f2, the king controls both of these squares. And c3, the knight also controls this square too. So as long as we can attack the knight, then we will be able to win it. The only way for us to attack the knight is with the king. We need to make sure we attack the knight at a space where it still controls, the king needs to control d2 and f2. So, for example, after king to d3, he can escape with knight to f2. And if king to f3, he can escape to knight to d2. The only square that controls both d2 and f2 while attacking the knight is king to e3. And after king to e3, black has no escape from this attack, and black will be forced to lose his knight, no matter where he goes. Moving on to our next example, here we need to find a trap piece for black as well. So do you have any idea of which piece is trapped? If you want time, you can pause the video. This one might be a little bit surprising, and it's hard to see right now which piece is trapped, but let's take a look. Can this rook move? Sure, it can go to c7. Can this rook move? Sure, it has the whole 8th rank to go to. This bishop seems like it has a couple squares to go to, so is it the queen? Well, let's look at the queen. The queen can go here and here, but the rook controls this file, controls this rank. The knight controls these squares, and the pawn, of course, and the queen control this square. So if we remove all these arrows here, let's remove the arrows. The queen looks like it's the one that's being trapped. The problem is the queen has two flight squares, f6 and f8 right now. So we got to attack him on the f file. How do we do that? Well, simply rook to f5. Now we check to see if the queen has anywhere to go. These three squares are covered by this rook on e2. These two squares are covered by the knight on f4. This square is also covered by the knight on f4. This square is controlled by the queen and the pawn. And of course the rook gets these two squares as well. So it looks to me that the queen here will be trapped, and black will be forced to lose a queen for a rook. This problem here we'll do is number 2 on your worksheet. So it's white to move in this position, and black is enjoying a good position. Material seems pretty equal at first sight. But the problem here is that black's bishop is low on squares. This pawn is blocking this diagonal, and in reality, the bishop only has these two squares to go to right now. What do? We attack the bishop then. Attacking the bishop has to go back to either c8 or e8. Let's see if bishop e8, then we can just attack it one more time, and we find that the bishop is trapped. This square is controlled by the king, this square is controlled by the pawn. Similarly, if the bishop goes to bishop c8, we just play king to c7, and the bishop is also trapped. d7 obviously is controlled by the king. So in here, the bishop will be trapped after king to d6. Let's try one more. This one we'll do here is number 5 on your worksheet. Here, black also has a trap piece. Now this one, like the second example I showed you, it might be a little bit hard to find which piece is trapped. A lot of times knights will get trapped though, because knights in general just don't have a lot of squares to go to. In fact, a knight at most can have 8 squares to go to, so if you are blocking most of them, then chances are the knight will be trapped. We look at this knight on e5 in particular. It seems like this square is controlled, this square is controlled, this square is controlled, this square is controlled. So it looks like the knight is pretty much trapped, except for this square, d7. Well, what should we do? If we attack it, the knight goes back to d7, and it seems like we will not have a way to, there's no way to directly attack it again. But if we play f4, he goes knight to d7. This is a square we actually want him to play to, because now we have another tactic. We use the removal of the guard of this knight in front of it, and we play the move e5. After e5, then either black moves his knight and loses this knight on d7, or he's forced to play knight to d5, which follows bishop takes here, and after this trade, white wins one pawn. This knight is still trapped, and it will be forced to go back to f8, and here white can play rook b5, for example, to win another pawn on b4. If black plays something like a5, then white can play knight to b6. If black plays rook to a6, then I know this is getting a little bit complex, but white plays knight to d5. The point is that this position is completely winning. Black's pieces are completely tied down to the defense of his pawns, and white has an extra pawn already. To find a trap piece, well, the first thing you need to do is to identify a trap piece. You need to identify which piece here is not doing well. Which piece here is not doing well? It's this knight here. This knight here is not doing that well. How do we take advantage of it? Well, do we want to put it on d7? You have to ask yourself these questions, right? Do we want to put the knight on d7? Yes, because then we see that there's a e5 afterwards and we have the removal of the guard. So the first step is to identify the trap piece, and the second step is to figure out how to win the trap piece or how to gain material from it.